because I know a lot about trauma, having experienced it from very early on and got to quite old. And the reason that I'm going to talk about trauma is because it seems that there's something of a zeitgeist going on with the trauma thing. Not least has everybody been completely traumatized by the whole pandemic thing. But also we've been intergenerationally traumatized by the system that is called capitalism. A lot of us have. And I hear a lot said about managing trauma and recovering from trauma. And as a experiencer of trauma, a victim of trauma, I don't think that trauma is manageable. And I don't think that it's possible to recover from events. I think that you can negotiate them, and I think that you can circumnavigate them, and that you can predict them, and that you can develop strategies for coping. But I don't think that the idea that you can manage your trauma responses, or that you can ever get away from the impact that they've had on your personality, well, I think that's a delusional perspective. And I think it's far more helpful to look at it from a perspective of finding ways through it, because it's not going anywhere. And you probably don't want it to, because if you forget or become less guarded in your process of getting cured, in inverted commas, from trauma, you, this is what I think, will make yourself more vulnerable the next time a trauma comes along. And I know that my perspective that another trauma will come along is apparently a result of my traumatized brain, but it's also a result of my life experience. So what I'm going to be doing in this ongoing series, which I'm not quite sure when they're going to happen or how frequently or how long they're going to be. I'm going to try and make them less than 5 minutes. I'm going to be talking about negotiating trauma and sharing with you my strategies for getting through life in the presence of a backlog of trauma that goes back to your early years. So, the reason I've picked today to begin is because I'm halfway through a therapy assessment with a fantastic organisation called SASH, and today is the day that I have to go through my history. And going through a lifelong trauma history normally fucks me up so badly. And so I'm going to share with you my methodology that I'm trying today, in the hope that I will be able to go through my history using said strategy and still be able to function afterwards. So, what I have done is, 1, I am in my bed. I'm in my safe space. The phone call is going to come and I'm just going to pick the phone up. I have a cup of coffee. I've got a spliff. There's no one else in the house, which is fortunate. I have put on my favourite nightie, my favourite silk wrap, and some lipstick. And I've brushed my hair. And so I'm in my safe physical space. Why is the door banging like that? Fuck's sake. I'm in my safe physical space. I've got my comfort clothing on. I've got my lipstick armour on. And so I can take the phone call, do all that from safe place. And I have planned that after I've done the phone call, I've got a nice phone call coming to organise a thing that I want to do that's going to make me happy. I've got an exercise class booked in for this evening, which I'm allowing myself to flake out on should I end up under a blanket. And non-negotiably, after I have finished with the call, I'm going to give myself half an hour to lie down under a blanket in a ball, and then I have to eat a food thing. Oh, also, I've made a point of eating a food thing before all this has happened. So, I'm hoping that this plan that I've got will assist me in going through yet again the lifetime's history of trauma that has brought me to the point where I am. And I think the point of this analysis is to highlight how potentially dangerous having to go through that process is, how as a victim of trauma you might be required to go through it over and over and over again with various therapists, organizations, this, that or the other, and that it is re-traumatizing in and of itself. So when you know you're about to get re-traumatized, plan niceness, self-care, and blanket time. And I think I've run out of things to say. So what I'm going to do is bid you adieu and come back after I've done the therapy thing and fulfilled the plan and let you know how it works. Wish me luck. I got from the beginning to the end, and I've run out of words, and that's all right. I don't have to have any, and I'm just gonna be under my blanket, and I'm gonna do that till I make some food. And that's what I'm gonna do. And then I was motivated to do the food thing. And I have to say, I feel much better, and I haven't even eaten it yet. And so after my story, when I was in bed doing the blanket thing, I was simultaneously texting somebody and having a text conversation. And then I lay down a lot and did the I'm asleep, I'm asleep, I'm asleep, pretending to be asleep thing, but I wasn't really. And that crying feeling that you have when it's, because crying is a lot of effort, it really is. And so when I finished doing the therapy thing, I had that, for me it's a feeling here behind, in the middle of my head. And it didn't, it's gone. It's not lasting. Normally, if I do that sort of therapy thing and have to do a history, that crying sensation stays in my head all day long. And in this instance, it hasn't. And I've made street food, and this plan thing seems to be working for me. I've also got a thing that I can or cannot do if I want. So there's a dance aerobics class around the corner outside, which is really good fun if you can get there. And I'm allowing myself to go if I feel like it and feel up to it, and not go if I don't feel up to it. And I don't have to decide until the last minute. If I flake out, that's fine, because I'll have succeeded in demonstrating self-awareness, in knowing that I'm not up to it. And if I go and I like it, then I'll have succeeded in going to do a thing that I was going to like. And if I go and I like it at the beginning and I stop liking it halfway through, I'm allowed to walk out in the middle, because then I'll be respecting the fact that I was liking it and now I'm not, and I don't have to do it anymore if I'm not feeling it. So it was looking like the trauma negotiation strategy is working well for today. I'm going to check in at the end of the day, because yeah, the real test is going to be bedtime, and whether or not I'm up all night tossing and turning with horror thoughts, or perhaps drift off into non-traumatized healthy sleep. Who knows? Cheers. So I went to bed feeling quite tough with myself, having kind of used my strategy to negotiate my way through the day. And I woke up this morning and I had no skin, and I just felt like this caving in feeling inside, and I've still got the adrenaline taste in my mouth, but I did all the things that I had that I intended, which wasn't very much. I did a yoga class, and then I met a friend and spent the afternoon having lunch with her, which was lovely. But simultaneously to functioning and having a lovely time, I just couldn't wait for it all to be over and for me to be back in bed, safe, and not having to interact and manage human interactions in any way, which I am now, and that's all good. And the fact that there's a helicopter flying around outside my house, above my house, for doing whatever it's doing, which flips me right back to the Grenfell scenario, and I won't detail you with the details of that. But yeah, helicopters flip me right out these days. And the fact that they're flying around outside and it's spinning me out while I'm trying to explain the fact that yesterday's malarkey spun me out today kind of crystallizes in the point that I think I'm trying to make, which is that the negotiation of trauma, which I deludedly imagined I'd use to manage my trauma, is not only a moot fucking point, also one is subject to external influences that may happen as and when, which you can have no control over. So I think my conclusion for this particular investigation into trauma negotiation is that because trauma responses impact everything about your personality, it is very difficult to recommend or monitor the efficacy of any methodologies one may or may not apply, because whilst the methodologies that I applied enabled me to function and get stuff done, at the end of the day I'm still sat in my bed feeling shit and not wanting to engage with the world in any way, shape or form. So if success counts as functionality, I succeeded. If success counts as feeling alright, I failed.